The Chronicle thanks our 2023 Meet the Candidates sponsors: Ann Colton Films, Flossmoor Station Restaurant and Brewery, Jonathan Kane Salon and Spa, and Tom Brabeck Law Office. With their help, HF voters will be well informed on Election Day, April 4th.
My name is Gerald Pauling. I am a sitting board member. I am currently the board president at Homewood-Flossmoor High School. I've served on the board for 9 years, going into my 10th. The last 2 years I've served as the board's president, and before that I served as the board's vice president. So, it's really about trying to create the academic experience for our students. I'm a product of Homewood-Flossmoor High School, and I say all the time I attribute much of the professional success that I've achieved to date to the strong foundation that HF helped me build. And this is a way that I give back and pay it forward. And so it really is about the kids and our community, and part of my doing my part, to help and to serve. I'd start by noting that we're actually doing, not just fine, we're doing excellent as high schools go. Our bond rating is higher than any school in the Southland. Our reserves are strong, 10.5 months or more. And we receive, very strong ratings from the Illinois State Board of Education on an annual basis, year after year after year. That strong financial position is very valuable to us in difficult times. For example, during the pandemic, when the state was not paying on time, we weren't worried about not having funds to operate our school and programs for our students. So right now I think our financial picture is very good. We do need to have a discussion as a board about what level of reserves is appropriate. On the one hand, we need to have money for rainy days and for contingencies like the pandemic and the state's financial condition, and so we have to be prepared to weather storms, but we don't want to overdo it and have too much money in reserves because we could be putting some of that money to use. At 10.5 months, I think I like that number, but I am certainly open to having a discussion as a board with our advisors about where we ought to be. Because 10.5 months, the way I get to that is if we had to run a school year and pay for it ourselves, that's about the amount of reserves we would need. So I kind of like that number, but and we've got some projects going on now, so I want to have more reserves than less, but I am open to the conversation. I think it's something we need to have on a regular basis. I am sure that some of those labs at the high school right now are labs that I worked in as a graduate back in 1985. So it was certainly time from a facility standpoint. But more than that, science standards evolve over time. And we need science facilities that are state-of-the-art and that are up to par with current science standards, the G4 standards. Our new science wing that's in the planning stages now is designed to be state-of-the-art to meet those G4 standards, and this building will take us into the foreseeable future. It's also going to be a net zero building, so in addition to the advantage of using borrowed funds to build it, the cost of a building of the size we're contemplating would ordinarily be $85,000 a year. Well, we're building a net zero building, and it'll be only the second in the state of Illinois. And by net zero, I mean it will cost us nothing to run the building because we're going to do it with solar and geothermal and green materials and resources, so that by doing that, we are participating in a program that makes the net cost to run the building zero for into the future. And so it's really a well thought out plan, and it's going to be a gym. People will come from far and wide to see our building, and it will be something that our students that will serve the interests of our students and be something our school can be proud of well into the future. I would mention the other thing we're really excited about doing is upgrading our culinary arts capacities. We've got a tremendous demand at HF amongst our students for food, health, and inspection, for restaurant management, chefs. And so what we're hoping to build is a culinary arts center that will allow those students to develop those skills and have that curriculum and leave HF with certifications in some of those areas, in restaurant management, certifications in food, health, and safety, certifications, those kinds of things. And that's really coming from the demand of our students. There's so many that are interested that our classes are full and they're overflowing, and some people are not getting to take those classes. And so by expanding our capacity, we'll be able to make those offerings to more of our students. Well, we always try. Now, trying and being able to secure those funds those are two different things. But we have designated residency resources at HF, and so whenever we receive information or whenever we develop a suspicion that someone is living out of district and attending the high school, we have the resources that we can conduct appropriate investigations of that. And then we have residency officers who then ensure that those families receive due process before we make decisions about whether or not they are entitled to attend the school. When we find that someone has been attending the school and they have been living out of district, we actually know how much time they've been doing it and how much money they owe us, and we do pursue those funds. I wouldn't be able to tell you what percentage of those dollars we're able to recapture, but it's relatively low, but it's high enough so that people understand that we are going to find them if they're doing that, and we are going to pursue them for the tuition they owe for students that are not appropriately attending HF. It's just it's not as easy to collect those dollars as it is to as we'd like it to be, but we do the best that we can. Well, I think I want parents to always be concerned about what's going on in our buildings, and to always be asking questions, and to always be raising concerns if they have them. I think we have an extraordinary culture at HF, and I am there, every week for several hours, and I'm in the buildings and with the students and with the teachers, and I can tell you I feel really good about the culture and what I see happening in our buildings. I feel like we're getting back to where we were before the pandemic. I mean, we have to remember our students have had, 2+ years of a not so normal educational experience, and so we're finally starting to turn the corner on that. And we don't have masks anymore. We don't have variants, scaring everyone anymore. And so the activity level is up. Student engagement is up. Student performance is coming back. So I really like what I'm seeing in our buildings. I love that our students express their voices, and I love that our administration works with them to do that. So those protests that you mentioned, those were supported by our administrators and our teachers. And our teachers and administrators were out with the students, making sure that students were safe and protesting, safely. We didn't try to stop them from protesting. We encourage that. We need to, as adults, teach them how to use their voices. I don't have a concern about, whether we're a school that doesn't have appropriate rules in place around issues of sexuality. We talk about that often. I know for sure that our principal and our new superintendent have had conversations with each of our classes at the beginning of the year to talk about issues, real issues like consent, what consent is. And so that I don't think we have a problem when it comes to those things. We are focused on those issues like as a school district should be. working with this company now called Terrace Metrics. And we brought Terrace Metrics in and we offered a behavioral health and wellness screening and assessment to all of our students coming out of the pandemic, because we knew that we knew what they had experienced during the times that they were away from school and in isolation, and suffering through lots of trauma and anxiety. And we expected there to be effects of that. And we talked as an administrative team and as with our faculty, as well about what our students were going to need when they were returning. And we put in place programs like these assessments to make sure we were not just assuming, what students were going through and how they were feeling, but actually going through the discipline process of talking with them and having a dialogue about those things. I do think that and I think that's a responsibility of the board to ensure that those kinds of programs are in place, that we're being proactive and not reactive when it comes to needs we know our students or suspect our students might have. I've been very pleased with what we're beginning to see as some of the results of those assessments come back to us. For example, our assessments show that our body of students has a more affinity towards school and a better positive positive feeling about school than kids nationally. I don't think there's a substitute for experience, and I've got a tremendous amount of experience on the HF board and on other profit and nonprofit boards. As I mentioned earlier, I've served as the president of this board for the past 2 years, and I was the vice president of the board before that. So I have a depth of knowledge about the things we have been working on for the past 6 years, actually, and the decision-making process that we went through in deciding what to do and why to do it. And that's not to say that we need to do the same things over and over again, but it is helpful to have a context of why we are where we are. And I provide that context. We also have a lot of transition at HF. We've got a new superintendent. We've got a new principal. Our director of curriculum is only 2 years into her job. We've got a new facilities director. We had Tom Wagner for 40 years. He's retired. Jim Patterson is brand new. And our IT director is brand new. So literally 5 of our 6 key administrators are new. They need continuity. They need a board that will support them while they get their legs under them. And I think that given my work on the board and the many things I've been involved with on behalf of the board, will be helpful to those new administrators. I also think substantive experience is very important, Marilyn. And I have a business background and a legal background. And I know that my legal background and training have been an asset to the board as we've tried to, as we've navigated various issues and worked on certain business issues. And so I really think it's about experience, it's about substantive skills, and it's about stability and continuity. Coming out of a pandemic where everything was disrupted, we need to be able to get back to a road that is easily traveled by our students. And I think that my presence on the board will help, move us into the future